In this video, I will talk about instantaneous versus average velocity and speed. So, what is velocity? You probably already know this from your everyday life. Velocity is how fast you move, or in other words, the size of your displacement in time. You know that if you have a larger displacement in a shorter amount of time, you have a larger velocity. Your average velocity is your displacement over a period of time. This is how we show it. Your average velocity is your displacement del x over del t, your period of time. So for example, if you go running with a stopwatch and you measure that it takes you 5 minutes to run 1 kilometer, then this means that your average velocity v is 1,000 meters divided by 5 times 60 seconds, or 3.33 meter per second. So this is your average velocity over 5 minutes. Now you might say, okay, I know that my velocity is 3.33 over 5 minutes, but I want to know that what is my velocity over 2 minutes. So in this case, you measure your displacement over the 2 minute periods of time. So let's say you move 500 meters in 2 minutes. So in this case, your average velocity is 500 divided by 2 times 60 seconds, or 4.17 meter per second. Okay, so you can make this time period over which you measure your velocity smaller and smaller and smaller until this time period goes to 0. Now you are measuring the instantaneous velocity rather than the average velocity. So this means that instantaneous velocity is average velocity in the limit of time going to 0. So we say v as a function of time is limit of the average velocity as time goes to 0. So this is your instantaneous velocity. We can also see why velocity is a vector. So velocity, average velocity, is displacement over time. And we know that displacement is a vector. So velocity is also a vector. Let's now see what is speed. Why is speed different from velocity? Even though in everyday life we might use the term speed and velocity interchangeably, in physics they are two different concepts. As we know, velocity is a vector, and speed is a scalar. This means that velocity has magnitude and direction, and speed only has magnitude, no direction. One simple thing to remember about speed is that speed is the magnitude of velocity. So this means that instantaneous speed is the magnitude of instantaneous velocity, and average speed is the magnitude of average velocity. So if we ask you to find the average speed, what do? You simply find average velocity and then say, oh, the magnitude of this value that I found is my average speed. Let's go back to our example of you running with a stopwatch. So first you ran for 5 minutes and your displacement was 1,000 meters. So you start from point 0 and you end up at point 1,000 meters. And your velocity here was 3.33 meter per second. But what is your speed here? Your speed is again just 3.33 meter per second. Now let's say you run back home and again it takes you 5 minutes to run 1,000 meters back home. So you start at point 1,000, run for 1,000 meters and end up back home. So in this case, what is your velocity? So velocity is displacement over time. And your final position in this case is 0 because you went back to point 0 and your initial position was 1,000. And this happened over 5 minutes. So in this case, your velocity is negative 3.33 meter per second. So you see, your velocity has a direction. It's negative now because you're moving in the negative direction. But what is your speed? Yes, so your speed is still positive 3.33 meter per second because speed is the magnitude of velocity. Okay, I hope this video helped you learn instantaneous velocity, average velocity, and instantaneous and average speed.